Controlled Chaos here. I have another interview with Dave Georgeson. How are you doing today, Dave?
Good. Sorry,
That's good.
You
So,
want to start over again? I shouldn't have been screwing around with my background.
hey, that's fine. Mess around with it. Have fun. You always have fun, especially with this latest update, the procedural creature. How much of that was your hands in on it? Were you mainly the one messing with the numbers and adding the powers, or was there multiple team members working on that?
There was two main people working on that update, Light Bates and myself. Light was doing most of the underpinning structure changes and making sure that the mechanisms were there in order to be able to do the procedural generation data that we needed. And then I was, I'm the data monkey. So I was going through and changing everything, like literally everything.
Okay, now speaking of making those changes, I've worked in Unity, and I know that you can code it so that you have this taskbar on the side that allows you to adjust sliders and have input fields to put in numbers. Is that the way you guys are doing things to be able to adjust mobs and things like that for designers, or are you guys literally diving into sort of the code bits?
It's like that, but different. We developed a tool called Object Type Editor, which allows us to manipulate a lot of the data. That's very specific to the game. It shows all our data fields and everything like that, and we work with that. And then you keep Unity open, the editor open on one window, and Object Type Editor on the other one, and we go from there.
So every team member has multiple monitors that they're working with, that they can have.
I can't even imagine working on a game with only one monitor.
I've done it. It's not fun.
I don't want to be that guy.
No, it's a headache. I remember my roommate when we were in college and working on our first game in our bachelor's degree, and he just had a laptop. And that was just really, really hard, where I'm because this was before we became roommates, and he came over to my place. I'm sitting at my desk with 3 monitors, and he's sitting on this laptop with 1 monitor trying to code things and get things to work. It's just like, I'm so sorry, but so anyone who can do that kind of thing, really, they got some passion for it. But with I really like that during this Kickstarter time, you guys didn't just do one major update with the seasons and the skyboxes and stuff like that. You guys got a second update with the procedural creatures. Was that sort of planned out in advance before when you guys were planning the Kickstarter, or was that just a coincidence thing?
We did plan the first one before the Kickstarter started. But the second one was, we had some other plans for the second update, and some of the stuff just ended up, it was going to take too long. There was just no way we were going to get it done. So we kind of fell back and thought about it for a while, and we're like, well, what can we do that would be really impactful for the game and also be really cool for the players to experience during the end of the Kickstarter campaign? And we knew that doing this procedural creatures thing was like just way too much work. And we decided to do it anyway. So Light and I just, I don't know, we spent about 2 months during that 1 month.
Basically, you looked at it and you said, Dave doesn't need sleep. He's fine for that whole entire time.
Not just me, but Light also. But yeah. There was one day when Light and I were talking, and Light goes, I've been up for 22 hours. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on 18. So we had a bunch of days like that.
Oh, yeah. I've been there. I mean, from testing games all the way up to working on games. I mean, heck, even in college when I was doing an animation, I did a 72-hour straight time of working on animation. It was my first animation project ever. I was still figuring things out and things like that. It's just like, I got done with that. I was staying at my mom's place, and I just slept for like a whole entire 2 days.
Yeah, Light and I we both worked. I mean, we don't want to do this on a regular basis. It's just that we were really motivated to get this update done. But we worked basically until our brains stopped working, and then we would sleep and start again the next day. It was amazing how many times we'd be like, "This is just not possible. We can't make this happen." And the next morning we'd wake up and go, "Oh yeah, duh, it's easy."
Yeah, yeah. That's where rest is very important, and that's where I'm not a big fan of crunch in the gaming industry. Is because it can affect how you think. And
it's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Mandated crunch always sucks. Mm-hmm. So there's no two ways around that. Passion crunch is a different thing. Like when people decide that they're just passionate about something and they want to put in the effort because they want to be the hero or they think it's really important or whatever it is, that's a different story entirely. And sometimes when we do those kinds of things, miracles happen.
Yeah.
There's amazing stuff that happens during those periods. But you can't mandate something like that. People just have to want to.
Yeah. And I have seen the differences there in that, because when my roommate who was working on the game with me, he did a 14-hour day crunch. Not because I asked him to. He did it himself because he got so involved in what he was doing. But when we were working at a company and it was, hey, you have to work this many hours no matter what, that's a lot harder because you're not choosing to be doing that. You're being sort of forced to do that to get the project out the door. And that's where I give companies like, what company? There's a company, Guild Wars 2, did a pushback on their expansion. It was originally supposed to launch in August, and they pushed it back to October, straight out saying, we don't want to do crunch time on our employees. We will get a better product by not doing crunch and pushing this back. I personally thought that was a smart move.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely true. That's, in my opinion, that's the difference between mandated crunch and passion crunch.
Yeah.
Mandated crunch is where the company says we got to have it by a certain time. So you want to work here, go ahead and do that. And that's demotivating, and it's aggravating, and it's really difficult for teams to withstand. Then there's passion crunch where people just volunteer to do it. And sometimes there's crunch where it's basically like, we said we were going to get this done by X amount of time. The company's expecting it. All right, let's put in the extra effort and make it happen. Yeah. It's not quite the same as passion crunch, but it comes from the same source.
Yeah, it's somewhat the same area. It's sort of the middle ground of the two.
Yeah,
is how I see that. Now, since we're sort of...
I have never actually talked about flavors of crunch before. This is interesting. There's also crunch berries only.
Yeah, there you go. And then there's just the regular crunch, and then there's crunch berries. There's so many different volumes of crunch. And hopefully Camtech Crunch doesn't come in and send in some lawsuits. No. But speaking of like the crunch and stuff like that, with that being said, I know that you guys are close to getting to alpha. What are you guys looking at for being ready for alpha? Is there set things that you want to have in the game before alpha? What are the set criteria you guys have for that? So, okay, we're good for alpha.
Well, I'll tell you, we've kind of stopped talking about alpha. What we've become really focused on recently is 24/7. And we're working. Most of our plans right now are starting to revolve around when do we go 24/7, which might be similar to alpha, but we're mostly concerned about getting the servers up and running on a regular basis, and then all the game and tech infrastructure that has to support that. Because we might be able to. It is theoretically possible that we could go 24/7 soon, But if the game systems don't support that, then there's 0 point to do it. Like if there isn't enough content there for people to play 24/7, then why do it? And then the flip side of that is we have to make sure that the servers are going to stay up. They're not going to crash on a regular basis. We're not going to lose data, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and speaking of that kind of thing, I remember on last Saturday's playtest, the Sims were having some issues, and you asked us to log out for safety, that the information saved, but you guys brought back the Sim really, really quick. It came right back up. I mean, it wasn't even like 5-minute wait time. How long did it take you guys to get to the point to where you can boot the Sims? That
That took a while. The CA Sim, the Sim stuff, that boots a little slower than the C# servers. The C# servers boot in, I don't know, 45 seconds or less.
Oh wow!
And the Sim, it takes about 3 to 4 minutes for it to come up reliably, which is it feels like a long time when you're waiting for it, but really that's very fast.
Yeah, it was really quick, and I was surprised because with this new update and you guys having the different levels of difficulties of mobs and the more different variety of mobs, I'm now seeing the feel of the MMO in this. Because I was in a group with you, there was like 20 of us running around on Rodin, just taking out a group of mobs and the makers and stuff like that. And we were just having a fun time doing it and jumping around. And, there was the need for us to be in that big group because of the different levels. Because I jumped in today and was working on taking out yellow. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot harder. And then I crested a hill and there was a group of orange owl deers coming right at me. I said, nope, turned right around and ran.
So it makes me feel really good that you feel like that increased the aspect or the feeling of it being an MMO. That's exactly why we did it. We wanted there to be more objectives than just building and gathering resources. We wanted to add more of that gameplay in there, and we've got a long ways to go. So I'm not arguing about that. Like we still have to put in grouping and better chat communication and reasons for doing things and so on and so forth. But this was definitely a step in the right direction. That's exactly why we're doing it. That's awesome that we felt that way.
It was a huge step because I remember in that group there was a bunch of us switching from our Omni blasters or our drone or our gravity guns to the Helix and actually using the Helix and the abilities of the Helix, such as the surge and the mass heal and stuff. Like I even did that. It was like, okay, what am I going to specialize in? Well, people are getting hurt a lot. Let me specialize in the Helix and start healing people. And people stopping and rezzing others just felt really good. And yeah, the group mechanics aren't in there, but because everyone gets their own set of experience based on what they're doing, really adds to that. Just for participating, they're getting the experience. So it's not like in EverQuest where if you're not in the group, you're not going to get the experience, which I actually really like because it really adds into those public events. Like we were playing today and the one of the boss mobs spawned and someone dragged it to the portal. And then another boss mob spawned, and there was like 3 boss mobs at the same time at the portal, and we're just trying to clear it out so that people coming in were safe. And there was a huge group of us doing that. And after that was all done, I'm sitting there trying to heal someone, and their health isn't going up. I'm wait, that's not low health. That's wounds. They have half of their health gone in wounds. So I'm like, okay, time for a dance party. And as soon as I said that in Discord, everyone started dancing to heal wounds. And speaking of being on Discord, that's the one thing that I really like that you guys do is you guys have a Discord up for all the testers, and it's not just the testers in there. Developers are in there. I know you jump in there. Raph has jumped in there. What made you guys decide to do the test and be on Discord at the same time?
Because we're not stupid. Let me put it a different way. If you want to think of it from a developer point of view, these tests are gigantic focus groups. I mean, we're getting real-time feedback on stuff all the time. And I'm not talking about like bugs, bug reports and stuff like that. I mean, most of the time we know what's broken. But getting real-time feedback on whether they like the changes or what we can do about it. I mean, yeah, okay, Raph and I have made a lot of games, fine. But do we think we have all of the answers? No. And when you have a whole bunch of people that are playing the game on a regular basis, there's going to be a lot of really good ideas that percolate up. And the only way you're going to hear those is if you talk to people.
Yeah. And you actually mentioned that before in the Discord about how what we've done in the game has changed your plans on doing things. I
Multiple
remember
times.
the main one being farming.
Yeah.
Because I know farming's
farming, we still haven't
in the
recovered from
works,
that
and
one.
you guys are reworking that because of our feedback and what we're doing already in the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's only going to make it better, because there's things in Stars Reach that I do that I don't do in any other MMO. I don't touch it. I find it boring. I don't like doing it in other MMOs. But in Stars Reach, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. This is interesting. This is cool. Like public events. When Warhammer Online did a public events, they were static. They were in one area and was the same thing over and over again. I was just like, okay, I've done this a couple times. I'm bored with this. I'm going to move on.
Yep.
The public events you guys already have in this pre-alpha, it's random. You don't know if you're going to get a big asteroid. You don't know if you're going to get the anti-gravity asteroid. You don't know if you're going to get boss mob, or what boss mob that's going to be, or where the location is. So every time an event happens, I'm running to it, especially for the asteroids, because it's putting new materials into the world. And I think that's just brilliant, because I was thinking to myself, okay, well, if we can destroy the world and we take out all of the copper or all of the marble, how is it going to get renewed? With these asteroids landing, and I remember the first time I logged in and you guys had the first public event, the giant asteroid landed right in front of me. I went there and I was like, oh, well, I'll just go ahead and see what happens. And I'm getting these resources of diamonds and marble. I'm like, this is how they're solving that problem.
It's one of the ways.
I think it's a smart move on your guys' half, because it allows the world to sort of keep itself maintained. Now, the question I have is, will those resources, if not harvested, will those fall deeper into the ground due to the weight of the resource, such as like lead being heavier than dirt? Will it sort of sink further, so we have to dig more into it, stuff like that?
Yeah, it definitely will. The adhesion changes are not in right now. So once those are in, that sort of thing will happen more often. I think I've talked to you about the adhesion changes in the past.
Last interview we talked about the adhesion changes. So
yeah, we have a bug that's outstanding on that, so we can't just roll them out. But yes, those make a difference. And also, there are probably other mechanisms that we'll use for replenishing things, or kind of nuke and paving the world a little bit. But they have to wait for systems like pressure. Imagine, I'm not committing us to this, but imagine that the world has a lava core. And as you dig down and you get too close to the lava core, the lava is under pressure. So when you open up a tunnel to it, that lava starts surging up the tunnel that you left behind. And then at a certain point, the lava starts to harden. And where the lava hardens, it also leaves minerals and stuff behind. So there's a lot of mechanisms like that we can do that will change the world and keep things fresh.
That's really cool, because one of the new things that you add with this update is hardness to different materials.
Yeah.
And I thought that, me getting into mining is a rarity in MMOs. the no-go for me. But in Stars Reach, it's one of my favorite things to do. And
Cool.
I played around with that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna dig dirt. Oh, dirt dig's really, really good. And then I was next to a mountainside, and I dug into that mountainside in different materials, and some were fairly quick, some were like really slow and stuff like that. Seeing that effect is, I think, really, really cool because it adds more of a challenge and sometimes a patience to mining, and really, once again, like you guys have been saying, you want to make a living world. It adds to that living world.
It
How
does.
hard was it to add in the hardness for the materials and get the system to sort of recognize?
Um, it was relatively simple because of all the work that Sean Grady's been doing with the sim stuff. Those properties were, I mean, the materials were already there, and they have strings of properties that go with them, and this was just one more. One of them were, it really wasn't that hard, but one of the more interesting things to do was researching just Mohs values in real life and trying to figure out what order of what relative hardness things were to each other, and then to make sure that the data values in the game reflected that, so that it feels right. You know, like pumice is easy to dig through, and diamond's super hard, and all the things in between. You know, like how does basalt relate to gneiss and relate to granite and things on and so forth. So that was interesting. But yeah, no, Sean had the data set up pretty easily. The hardness values were a relatively straightforward thing compared to other things.
So I bet you there is going to be one hard point in doing the hardness values, and that's with the materials you guys come up with, like anti-gravium. What's the hardness
Sure.
value of anti-gravium?
Yeah.
Anti-gravium isn't an actual real resource that we know of.
That we know of. Yeah.
And so how do you figure out what's the hardness value going to be when mining anti-gravium?
Well, see, that's the beauty of doing all the other ones first, is you can kind of look at it and go, all right, well, what do we want anti-gravium to act like? You know, is it like, is it basalt like, is it, pumice like, so on and so forth. And then you say, all right, well, that's what this is. That's the reality of this mineral. And then we'll go on and make sure that other things reflect similar values. Like a lot of materials, the adhesion value and the hardness value are similar. Not all of them. Some of them are really brittle and don't have any. They can't overhang very well at all. They snap, but they can still be hard to dig through. Mm-hmm. So there's a few exceptions like that, but in general, most of them are similar.
Yeah. See, I was thinking as the game developer side of, okay, we got this rare resource. We want this to be hard to mine. Therefore, we're going to give it a high hardness value. That's how my mind was thinking. But
well, I mean, like a lot of people thought when we added the hardness thing that all we were trying to do was slow down mining. But that's not it. Yes, it does have some of that effect, but slowing down mining really doesn't do very much. All it means is that it takes longer to Swiss cheese the world, not that it doesn't. Not that you don't Swiss cheese the world, right? Yeah. So that's not a solution for that particular problem. It is an interesting thing from a gameplay perspective, though, for the reasons that you said earlier. Like when you're mining through, you'll be like, okay, well, I'm starting to hit a hard material here. Either I try to go around it, or I don't know, maybe you transmute it to something else, using the chronophager, so that you can dig through it more easily, or whatever, or melt it or something, so that you can work your way through it more rapidly. And that's interesting gameplay because you're making decisions while you mine.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I like the mining in this game. You go play like EverQuest, World of Warcraft, or any of these others where you're just harvesting the node that's out there. There's no thinking to it. It's just click the button and go. With Stars Reach, especially with having this hardness value in there now, you're now having to think, okay, do I want to dig through this hard material? Do I want to go around? Do I want to transmute it? Do I want to eat it? Then there's other things that you got to think about and worry about, such as what happens if I hit an area where there's sand just above me and it crashes down on me, and figuring all those types of things out. You've turned something that every other game has as a mundane thing into a thinking man's game. And I really like that.
Thank you for the segue, because that's my personal soapbox right now. So when I say that, what I mean is, like, of course we have skill trees, and you spend a lot of time gaining experience so that you can unlock the skill nodes. Well, okay, congratulations, you unlocked all the skill nodes in a skill tree. That does not mean that you're good at using those skills. We're setting things up in our game so that when somebody kind of masters an area, there's also a bunch of nuance that goes with each of the different areas that you play in. Like combat guys get good at understanding the creature's AI and figuring out how to have the right mix of people together and everything like that. That has almost nothing to do with how many skill boxes they've unlocked.
Yeah.
Crafters have to decide like which materials make the best things to be able to create the end result of the person that they're selling the item to, and trying to figure out what items do people actually want to buy, because the people that use their stuff more, that directly correlates to how much experience they're getting. And the same is true of mining. Like, yes, I can mine through everything now, but that doesn't mean that I know how to buttress the material to keep it from caving in while I'm mining. It doesn't say, what I do when I hit a particularly hard mineral and I want to get to the other side. There's everything needs to have nuance like that, so that players learn and become specialists in those areas. And then when other players need something done, they don't just try to do it on their own. They go find a specialist. They figure out somebody who's good at it, and that's the person that they generally hire to do the work.
Yeah, and that's really smart, because with the mining, you have that, and then this new update with procedural creatures, I'm now using my dodge and my jump pack and my grapples and using other tools to get around to not get hit. And then also with the added fact of having food, make it so that you can resist being frozen or break free from being frozen and things like that. And then, on top of that, you layer on the helix and being able to break people free of being frozen, or the shock status and things like that.
Right.
So many talented skills, and especially when, we were running in big groups, but I could small group of 6 fighting a big group of mobs, having to go at it tactically and communicate. Okay, I need you to flank this creature over here. I need you to grab aggro for it. I'm going to stop attacking. You attack. There's going to be a lot more communication in doing things like that. And, even in like you get a group mining, you have one person putting up the framework to keep things from falling down and communicating with the other miners. Okay, stop mining. I'm having trouble getting this framework up, or okay, go forward and mine. And in making those discussions really adds a lot. I mean, the main thing about MMOs is being social and communicating and interacting with others. If you don't have that, you don't have an MMO. And this game has it in massive amount. Even early on, when you first added homesteads, we were communicating with each other and we built a city. You didn't ask us to build a city. You just said, build stuff. And we formed together and built Beanstalk City. Did that take you by surprise when we chose to do?
Me personally, no, because of the games that I've made in the past. I've seen organic growth like that before, and I was absolutely relying on it. People always, sorry, I shouldn't say all people, because there's a bunch of different kinds of people, but a lot of people, especially gamers, they want to do something that's bigger than themselves. It's something that a lot of people that play games want. You want to be not just the hero, but you want to actually make a difference. And being able to create a city so that other people can come and not only just admire it, but actually eventually use it. That's a very productive, rewarding kind of experience. and the actual act of creating a city is extremely social. Lots of talking. It's very real time. It's extremely rewarding moment to moment as you see stuff go up around you. So yeah, I mean it's a great activity, but it's also not, like you said, it's not directed. We don't demand that anybody do it. We just make it possible, and then people go crazy with stuff. And that's going to be true of everything we do.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, for instance, guilds aren't in the game, but we have a guild called Gunk, which they literally go through and they replant and make sure that the foliage on these planets is still there. And they're creative with doing it. They've shared some of the screenshots of how they strategically planted things and made this nice sort of garden to walk through. Sort of like if you go to Portland, you have the rose gardens and stuff like that. And they do stuff like that. Now, did that surprise you when you know Gunk came around and started forming and doing what they're doing?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't expect that one. I especially didn't expect the white papers and stuff. That was awesome.
That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, but it is a really good example of people finding a niche and then exploiting it and becoming really good at it. I had seen things like that on a previous game with building. I've seen that obviously with combat in other games, but I hadn't really had a game where you could just kind of go crazy with plants the way we do here. And it's awesome to see something new, something really original. And yeah, it bodes well for the rest of the design.
Oh yeah, it does. I mean, that's what I like about one of the things I like about sandboxes versus theme park MMOs. Sandboxes, you can do whatever you want when you want. In theme parks, you're restricted to your level and that. You know, I started out in EverQuest. I was lucky enough to be in a guild that, you know, yeah, you can come along to this high level area and fight with us, but if you die, you gotta get your own body back. We can't waste the time to bring you back. And I would go with them to, you know, fight these cyclopses to get, you know, platinum's worth of copper. And the only reason I was there was just to hang out and chat. I didn't do anything in combat. I was a mage and I bound myself to the bank, and I was basically their banker. They would hand me that's worth of copper to where I couldn't move at all. And I'd teleport back to the bank, turn it all into platinum, and then take the voyage back to there and then split out the share. And they'd each give me a platinum each for doing that. So I had this like level 10 mage with like, I think 1,000,000 plat just from doing that. And that was fun. I was like, you know, I wish more games went with the sandbox feel, because
well, I mean,
go ahead.
It's not easy to build a sandbox. It sounds easy. Oh, we'll just make a bunch of systems and let the players do whatever they want to. And that is absolutely accurate. But the first part of that sentence is really hard. Like sandboxes can be very difficult games depending on what you're intending to do. And the stuff that Raph came up with for this game, it wasn't that it was just the right set of components, which it is. Mm-hmm. It was the fact that he was able to just sit there in a room by himself and come up with all these really great ideas and figure out how they were going to interlink with each other a long time ago. Like he's been tinkering with this for a long time. Mm-hmm. So it takes a lot of vision to figure out exactly what set of parts you need in order to integrate with each other. And then it takes a team of people to put it all together and make it great.
Yeah. You know, from what I've seen, you guys have a list of really good developers. I mean, you have developers from City Heroes, EverQuest 1, you from Planet Side. So, you know, a lot of MMO veterans on this game, which is why I'm not surprised when I see these quick turnarounds in bug fixes. Guys adding new features to the game doesn't surprise me one bit, because you have experienced developers doing this, and that's other reason I feel that this game is going to hit launch. Also, how you guys talk about it, and that you can scale what you do for launch, which makes it more feasible. By games, it's okay, we have to have all of this stuff in, and then launch. You guys can scale a little bit more. And I think that's really interesting. And another reason why I backed the Kickstarter is because of that scalability. And is there things that you're looking at to say we definitely have to have this in for launch, or you hit launch, and what are some of those things on that list?
It's a long list. First of all, I'd like to address an earlier point you made, which is basically that a lot of games, don't get to this point. I would say that the vast majority of games that fail before they get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to this point, you've got the infrastructure for a game, and you know exactly what it is that you're building. I don't mean to imply that from here to the end, to launch is easy. It's not. It's a huge amount of hard work. But what we're doing right now is the downhill side of the mountain. We still have quite a ways to go. There's a lot of features that we must add, like, for instance, starships.
Yeah.
Pretty big deal. And, that's going to be a lot of work, and it involves a lot of stuff that's not in the game right now. Now, how hard is it? Not that hard. We have most of the mechanisms to support it all. It's just a matter of there's a lot of artwork. There's a lot of theory crafting, and there's a lot of design stuff that needs to be done. But from a code perspective, it's not that difficult because we've already got the infrastructure to support it. Guilds, advanced chat stuff. We have like dozens of skill trees to build. None of that stuff is rocket science. The rocket science part of our game is already done. So yeah, downhill makes it very probable that we're going to make it. In fact, I'd be really surprised if we don't make it.
Since we were talking about the Kickstarter a bit, has there anything happened with the Kickstarter that sort of surprised you?
Oh yeah, the first couple of days were insane. We had no idea. We hoped. We seriously hoped, because we needed it really badly to be able to show people that there was interest in the game. But we didn't expect just the massive surge and how fast. Like, in 44 hours to kill the goal was incredible. I mean, it was a really, really good day for us. Yay for the money, but we were just really heartened by the fact that there was that kind of support for the game.
And the question I have is, I know that you guys are using the Kickstarter to sort of show to investors that this is a feasible product. People want this product. Have you seen any reactions from investors on that front?
Yes, we have, and I'll get my butt kicked if I talk too much about it.
Okay, I'll back off on that one.
but no, the interest has been really, really very positive, extremely positive. So hopefully great things will happen.
Now, are you guys planning on any system after the Kickstarter for players or people interested in the game wanting to support the game to have? Or like maybe on the website a thing of, pay this much money, get access to this or something like that. Or maybe people who didn't have, well, actually you guys are going to be doing early access when it hits alpha, right?
Yeah, early access is when I said the 24/7 thing, that's really the requirement before we can go early access.
Okay, so when you do early access, and I know it's probably going to be through Steam, is it going to be pay a certain amount to get early access, or just going to be sort of free?
Early access is pay for the game. Yeah,
you're doing to pay for the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, our Kickstarter backers from the $30 value up, I think, They all get early access.
Yeah.
And in fact, they get access from here to launch.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody else, if they want to keep playing the game, then they have to buy into early access. That's what early access is.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Well, I'm used to that because when I joined the Planet Side beta and the Star Wars Galaxies beta, I had to pay $50 each to get the discs shipped, because this was before we had well-known broadband and stuff like that. I mean, ESL was just starting to become a thing. So
I did not remember we shipped discs for PlanetSide.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually still have my beta discs for both.
Cool. Yeah, no, I didn't remember that.
People complain about early access, I just sit there and go, back in my day, we had to pay to get into the betas.
You remember when Doom 2 shipped on, like, what was it, 14 floppies or 21 floppies or whatever it was?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember those days. Well, I remember when floppies were actually floppy. Commodore 64 floppy disks.
The 5 1/4.
Yeah. So that was my first computer.
Back in your old days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Definitely. And so what's the next feature you're excited to see get put into the game?
One of the backbone features that's really going to make a big difference is artisan crafting. When we, I hope that we get to do this soon. We're revamping we're in the process of revamping our roadmap. Artisan crafting is one of those things where we bring in the crafting game for real instead of that just basic game that we have in there right now. And it adds a lot of the nuance. We start to be able to craft. We start to be able to enhance specific areas of the weapons and tools and things like that you make, to be able to better suit them towards niche opportunities. Like we talked about earlier with terraforming crystals and things like that. Yeah. Being able to mine different hardnesses and stuff. That's all part of crafting. And the other benefit of that is we get to take all that stuff out of all the other skill trees and put it into the crafting skill tree. So that way, only the people that are really interested in crafting are the ones that pursue it. Everybody else can just get a weapon from a crafter, which is what the end game is. Not end game, that's a bad term. But that's what the eventual launch game is supposed to be doing, is like the people that want to craft get really good at it. They know how to manipulate it. That's their specialty, like I was talking about earlier. And everybody else just gets to be in a position where they hope they know a really good crafter. And that way they can get the cool equipment they want, or they wait and try to buy it somehow on the market.
Now that you mentioned crafting, I want to bring up one of the bonus tiers in the Kickstarter, which was crafting customization. And that you guys, because when I was sort of coming up with the dream MMO I wanted to make, I wanted to do crafting customization where you can choose a different barrel, a different grip, and different parts like that. And you guys are actually doing that. Something along that lines from what I saw. At least changing like the texture colors. Yeah,
for sure. You're going to be able to customize all the characteristics of whatever it is you're building. For sure, you're going to be able to change the colors and the textures in different areas on whatever you're crafting. For sure, you're going to be able to name it and be able to write descriptions and stuff, although that'll obviously have some customer service fences around it.
Yeah.
Things where we get to the point where we're changing out modules to change the silhouette and everything like that, that's more of a stretch goal at this point.
A stretch goal.
Because
okay,
that requires a mountain of artwork. Huh? What was that?
That's after launch?
Not necessarily, but I can't commit to it right now because of the art burden that goes with it.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of 3D modeling that you have to do of those pieces, stuff like that, and then you gotta texture those, and like you said,
if you don't do enough of it to matter, then there's no point in doing it at all.
Yeah. And now, when we're talking about the crafting, we were talking about the skill level of the players, because you have the whole entire thing of the artisan where you can tweak things. Like, let's take the terraformer. You could tweak things to where, okay, I'm going to lower the amount that's in the hopper, but I'm going to increase how well it digs through hard resources, type of thing. And on top of that, you guys are also layering in the quality of the resource being used, the quality, the type of metal that's being used, and then the overall quality of that metal will also affect the end result of the final crafted product. Am I correct?
That is correct. Yeah. Yeah, and there will also be, right now, we don't have any interim objects either. And by what I mean by interim objects is, let's say you were going to build a weapon. Uh, the weapon might be composed of a barrel and a stock and a sight and things like that. And you might need to build those things separately. And then you're going to want to push those so that they're absolutely maximized, so that you can take those really maximized things and put them together in a weapon that excels beyond what a normal person could craft. So there's depending on just how far you want to push that ultimate artisan object, you can start all the way back from word go and start pushing your way through and making the absolute best things. But of course, that makes that end product that you created very rare and almost bespoke, and that increases its values. So anybody that's able to get something like that will tend to use it for a really long time because they can't get something better. And the more they use it, the more experience you gain as a crafter that made it.
Mm-hmm. And that's really good. As I mentioned in my update video, I like the fact that you guys aren't giving huge books of experience for doing something. You're trickling experience through as you're doing it. And the
Yeah.
more you're doing it, the more experience you get. A good example is when we were out hunting on Saturday and someone put down a camp and didn't take a look at their ranger experience until after, and they're like, oh my god, I have 5,000 experience in a ranger, because they put down one camp and 20 people were using it in mass. It was just blowing up the, I think that's,
Which is clearly a bug also,
well,
but
yeah,
yes.
but I mean, still, the fact that
Yeah,
it shows that, if, because when I put down a camp and one person uses it, I get a little bit of experience.
right.
But yet, when a bunch of people are using it, you get the mass amount. And that's sort of what you're talking about. Same thing with the crafting, is more people out there using your equipment that you make, the more experience you're going to be bringing in overall over time. And
Yeah.
I actually like that, because so many games are like, we need to show big numbers everywhere. And so when you take out a mob, you'll see huge numbers early on, and then it dwindles down when you get higher level. You guys are starting off experience being the low level, but a constant flow coming in. And I sort of like that feel a little bit better.
Yeah, we're still tinkering with it. It's definitely a balance point. Like, there was a big discussion. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's similar. There was a big discussion when we did the hardness thing of the fact that people started getting like zero point 0.1 of a resource when they were mining, where it was before they were getting like 1.5 and 3 and things like that. And they were like, well, zero point 0.1, it's such a small number. And they were like, yeah, but cumulatively you get a bunch over time. It's just a different way of presenting it. Well, I don't like decimals. Well, I like bigger numbers, and that conversation going back and forth is something we're listening to, and same will be true of experience. But the idea of earning experience by being useful to other players, that's kind of a backbone of the game. We're definitely going to be doing a lot more of that.
And that's a good backbone that I like of the game. Another uncommon thing that I see in games is the use of like role playing features of emotes and like being able to sit and lay down in beds and things like that. You don't see a lot in MMOs. There's very that Star Wars Galaxies did it. Is that so in Stars Reach? a chair, you can sit in the chair.
Sure. I mean, I've seen it done a bunch of different ways. There are some people that are basically like, well, the chair has to be, all chairs have to be a certain height, so that when you sit in it, it works. And then the other way is kind of like, well, City of Heroes did it a different way, so that's the one I'm going to pick on, where they gave you a bunch of sit animations, and it was really up to you as a player to find something that would work well with that sit animation.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those ways work. We haven't decided which way we like best. I tend to like the flexibility of the City of Heroes approach more, where you basically have a bunch of animations you can choose from, and then wherever you want to sit is which one you use.
Yeah.
But to each their own. We're still talking about it.
Well, and the way we guys have the system set up, you could start off with a small batch of just like 1 or 2 sit animations, and then later on, even after launch, add in more.
Yes, absolutely.
And
the beauty of MMOs, you're never done.
Yep, exactly. And that's the great thing. And the other thing I want to talk about is monetization. I know that you guys are doing the whole entire thing of, oh, you want a homestead plot, you have to pay a property an amount for property. I think it's what, like $10 right now?
No, the number, yeah, the number's still fuzzy. We're still talking
fuzzy, but there's going to be an amount that you pay to be able to do property. But what I like that you guys have brought out is the whole entire loyalty system, because there's so many people that play these free play games where all of the good cosmetics are locked behind a paywall. You guys aren't exactly doing that with the loyalty system. You're saying, hey, you play for a good amount of time, you can use those loyalty points like you can paying actual money in the shop.
This is a big subject, and we only have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to have to be really, really concise with what I say here. It's possible to play every aspect of this game without paying a dime.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean every aspect, including owning homesteads. It is absolutely possible to do that without paying a dime directly. However, somebody will have bought that property pass. Somebody will have purchased the currency that was used to be able to buy that property pass. And then that currency or that property pass can be traded to other people for favors, or for in-game transactions or whatever they want to use, even for an artisan crafted item or something like that. You can get that currency is valid. It's a player currency, and you'll be able to use it back and forth. In addition to that, there's also loyalty points, and loyalty points are generally used for. There's an alternate price structure for the stuff that's available on the game on the game store, on the in-game store, and that's all based around loyalty points. And you'll be able to earn those by playing the game on a regular basis, and then that gives you an alternate way to acquire things without necessarily spending money. And then, of course, there's money. You can just spend money. That's fine too. But Raph and I are really dedicated to the idea of no play to win, and making it so that it's possible for everybody to participate, whether or not they pay cash or not.
Yeah, I actually like that system, because then it's the 3 types of money in the game interacting, because you have the money that you get just in the game itself.
Right.
You know, the currency, wherever you guys name it, that's just in game.
Probably credits, but yeah.
But and then you have the real world currency that's brought into the game, and then you have the loyalty point currency that's brought in, and the fact that anyone can hold all 3 of those currencies without actually having to put in real money. So a person can, will a person be able to like purchase a certain amount of real world currency and then pay someone a bit of that real world currency in the game for an artisan item, or maybe like a house or something like
that? Yes.
And that's what's really, I really like, because then those people who don't have much money can spend the time actually making something really good, sell that to a player, get the currency to be able to buy the stuff on the real world currency market, and also get those loyalty points, and it just sort of mixes well. Whereas the person who doesn't have much time, they can go and use the real world currency and buy things, and it just mashes things really nicely. I'm excited to see how this all works out. But
Yeah,
as you said, there's not much time left, so I want to let you guys all know there's only a little bit less than 48 hours left for the Kickstarter. The link to it is down below. Now is a good time to get in on this if you've been watching, keeping an eye on Stars Reach, and you're interested in the game's mechanics. I can tell you right now, if you like Star Wars Galaxy's gameplay mechanics, you're going to love the gameplay mechanics in this. Same with if you like No Man's Sky game, sort of like a mix of the two and then some. And from someone who's been in the pre-alpha for months, it's a joy to play this game, and I've been doing things that I normally don't do in other MMOs. But once again, up to you if you want to donate to the Kickstarter and make money to do so. Don't go and spend food money or rent money to back this. I mean, you guys have even stated that you don't want people doing that.
no.
And so, Dave, I want to thank you for your time in doing this second interview. I can't wait to see the crazy things you come up with next, along with the other developers. Everyone,
Yeah.
have a great day.
Thanks.